Federal Information Processing Standard Publication 198 Keyed Hash Message Authentication Code Category Computer Security Subcategory Cryptography Information Technology Laboratory National Institute Standard Technology Gaithersburg, Maryland 20899-8900 Issued March 6, 2002 for Federal Information Processing Standard Public NIST official series publication relating to the standard guidelines adopted with the promulgated provision of Section 5131 Information Technology Management Reform Act 1996, Public Law 104-106, Pure Security Act 1987, Public Law 100-235, mandated to have given the Secretary of Commerce National Institute of Standards and Technology responsibility for improving the utilization, management, computer of the related telecommunications system, federal government, National Information Standards and Technology through its Information Technology Laboratory, government leadership, technical guidance, coordinated with the government efforts and with the development and understanding of the guidelines in these areas. Comments concerning federal information processing standard publications are welcome and should be addressed with the Director of Information Technology Laboratory, National Institute Standard Technology 100 Bureau Drive, Stop 8900 Gaithersburg, Maryland 20899-8900 William Matheroon, Director, Information Technology Laboratory. And we'll copy that as soon as I'm done. Abstract standard describes key hash message authentication code, a mechanism message authentication cryptograph hash function. Key hash message authentication code can use an iterative approved cryptographic hash function combination with a shared secret key cryptograph string with a key hash method authentication code properties underlying hash function. The hash method authentication code specification string with a generalization internet RFC 2104 HMAC key hash message authentication code, message authentication ASI X971, key message authentication code, keywords, computer asserted, cryptograph, key hash method authentication code, message authentication code, message authentication, federal information processing standards. Federal Information Processing Standard Publication 198, March 6, 2002, announcing standard of the key hash method authentication code. Federal Information Processing Standards are issued with the National Institute Standard Technology approval Secretary of the Commerce pursuant with the 5131 Information Technology Management Reform Act 1996, Pure Security Act 1987, name and standard of the key hash message authentication or HMAC Fips of the publication 198, category standard of computer security standard subcategory cryptographic explanation standards, specified algorithm application requiring message authentication method authentication achieved with the view of the construction of the method authentication code. Message authentication code based on cryptographic hash functions known as key hash message authentication code. Purpose of the method authentication code is to both source of the message integrity without using any additional mechanism that key hash method authentication code has two functionally distinct parameters: message input and secret key known only to the message originator and the intended receiver. Additional applications key hash functions include their use in the channel's response authentication protocol for computing responses which are functional with both secret key and challenge message. Key hash method authentication code is a function message and to produce a value of the message authentication code that is formed in condensing secret key message input. Message authentication code typically sent to the message receiver along with the message receiver computes message authentication code on the received message with the same code. The key hash method authentication code function is used by the sender and compares the result of the computer with the receiver of the message authentication code. If the two values match, the message has been correctly received and the receiver is assured that the sender is a message of the community user and the share of the key. Key hash method authentication code specification standard with the generalized key hash method authentication code specified in Internet RFC 2104 key hash method authentication code. Key hashing method authentication ANSI standard X971 key hash method message authentication code improving authority Secretary of Commerce. Maintenance Agency, Department of Commerce, the National Institute Standard for Technology, Information Technology Laboratory, applicability to federal departments of the agency protection unsensitive and unclassified information is not subject to Section 2315 of the Title 10 United States Code, Section 35022 of the Title 44 United States Code. The standard should be used for designating the required implementing key hash message authentication techniques and systems of the federal department agency that operate for them under contract adoption with the use of the standard they are able to volunteer basis of the provide with the commercial organization. Specification Federal Information Processing Standard 198 Key Hash Method Authentication Code affixed. Implementation. The authentication mechanism described in the standard may be the implemented software, firm hardware, or combination thereof. NSIST will develop a cryptographic module validation program that will test implementation conformance of the key hash method authentication code standards information programs is available at csrc.nist.gov crypto CRSC, I repeat, csrc.nsist.gov/CRYPTVA, or crypto valid. Agencies advise the keys of the hazmat key hash message authentication code application should not use them for other purposes. Other approved security functions, key hash authentication method, authentication code implementation comply with the standards that employ cryptographic algorithm, cryptographic key generation algorithm, key management techniques that have been approved with the protected federal government sensitive information. Approved cryptographic algorithm techniques include those that are either specified by the Federal Information Processing Standards, adopted Federal Information Processing Standard, National Institute Standard Technology recommendations specified either in the appendix of the Federal Information Processing Standards or National Institute Standards and Technology Recommendation document in reference to the Federal Information Processing Standards or National Institute Standards and Technology Recommendations specify the list of approved security functions of the Fips 142. Export control certain cryptographic device technical data regarding our subject federal export control export cryptographic modules implementing the same of the technical data regarding must comply with the federal regulations and licensed by the Bureau Export Administrator of the U.S. Department of Commerce. The applicable the federal government export control specified in Title 15 Code Federation 740-17, Title 15 Part 742, Title 15 CFR Part 774, and Category 5 of Part 2. Implementation schedule. The standard becomes effective on September 6, 2002. Qualifications. Security afforded by the key hash method authentication code function dependent on the maintaining secrecy over the key. Therefore, user of the most aggregate against disclosure of these keys whatever the intent of the standard specified the mechanism provided the message authentication performance to this standard that does not ensure that the particular implementation is secure, that the responsibly implemented to ensure that any module containing a key hash method authentication code implementation is designed and built in a secure manner. Similar use to the product containing implementation conform with the standard does not guarantee that the security overall system when the product and use of the responsibility authority of each agency shall assure that the overall system provides acceptable level of security. Since the standard of the nature of the flexible enough to adopt the advancement and innovation of the design technology standards will be reviewed every 5 years in order to assess adequacy. Waiver procedure. Under certain circumstances, the federal agency with the other delegates must approve of the Federal Information Processing Standard. However, the agencies delegate such authority only to the senior of the official of the designated with the pursuant Section 3506B of the Title 44 United States Code waiver the trip of the ground when compliant with the standard would. Virtually effectively accomplishment mission operated with the federal computer system and called with a major adverse financial impact of the operator that offset with the government-wide savings. Agencies head may act upon written waiver requests containing the information detailed above. The agencies head may also act without a written waiver request when determined that the conditions meeting for the change cannot be met. Agencies heads may approve of the waivers only with a written decision and explain on the basis of the agency's head by the required finding with a copy of each of the decision when the procurement is sensitive to the classified portion clearly identified shall be sent with the National Institute Standard Technology Attention Federal Information Processing Standard waiver the decision information technology laboratory 100 Bureau Drive Stop 8900 Gaithersburg, Maryland 2089-9-8900. In additional notice, each waiver granted with each of the delegation of authority to approve of the waiver shall be promptly with the Committee of the Government Operation House with the representative of the Committee of the Government Affairs of the Senate shall be published promptly with the Federal Register of the determination waiver the apply for the procurement of the equipment and series for the notice of the waiver the determination may be published in the Commerce Business Daily as part of the notice of solicitation for offer the acquisition if the waiver determination made after the notice is published by the amendment to such notice. Copies of the waiver, any supporting documents for the document approved of the waiver, and any supporting accompanying document such for the deletion of the agency with the authorized to decide with the make under Section 552B of the Title 5 United States Code shall be part of the procurement documentation retained for the agency. Whoever to obtain the copies of the publications available to accessing csrc.nist.gov publications. The list of other computer security publications included awarded information contained with the National Information and Technology Publication List 91, which is available on the same website. Alternatively, the copy of the National Institute Standard Technology Computer Security Publications are available at the National Technical Information Services, 5285 of the Portal Royal Road, Springfield, Virginia, 22161. Federal Information Processing Standard Publication 198, 2002, March 6, Specification, Key Hash, Message Authentication Code, Table of Contents, Introduction, Glossary Term Acronyms, Key Hash, Message Authentication Code, Parameters and Symbols, Cryptographic Keys, Truncated Output with a Key Hash, Method Authentication Code, Specification, Implementation Note, Key Hash, Method Authentication Code, Examples, Limitation of Message Authentication Code, Algorithms, and references. 1. Providing a way to check the integrity of information transmitted over and stored over the unreliable medium and the primary necessity of the world open to computing with the communication mechanism provided the integrity checks based on secret key, usually called the message authentication code. Typically, the message authenticator between the two parties share a secret key, and in order to authenticate information transmitted between these part of the channel that defines the message authentication code with a cryptographic hash function in conjunction with the secret key of the mechanism called the key hash method authentication code, and is generally with a key hash method authentication code specified in 1 and 3. Key hash method authentication code should be given the combination or proof of the cryptographic hash functions. Key hash method authentication code uses the secret key calculation verification of the message authentication code maintains the goal behind the key hash method authentication code construction. 3. With the available the hash function without modification, particularly with the hash function performing well in software which code freely widely available. Preserve the original performance of the hash function without incurring significant degradation. Use the handle keys in a simple way to help understand Hips cryptographic analysis strength of the authentication code mechanism based on reasonable assumptions on underlying hash functions, and would allow the replaceability of underlying hash functions in the event of the faster, more secure hash functions are later available. Glossary terms and acronyms. Glossary term. The following definitions are used throughout this standard. With approval of the Federal Information Procurement Standards approved and the NIST recommended algorithm or technique that is either 1 specified with the Federal Information Processing Standard with the National Institute Standard Technology recommendation, or 2 is adopted the Federal Information Procurement Standard, National Institute Science Standard and Technology recommendation specified with the Fips or NSIT recommendation, or in a document reference for the Federal Information Processing Standard or National Institute Standard Technology recommendation. Cryptographic key or key, a parameter conjunction cryptographic algorithm, terms specific operation of the algorithm, and sharing with a cryptographic key with the key hash method authentication code algorithm to do with the message authentication code on the data. Has function to prove with the mathematical function of the map string with the arbitrary length of up to predetermined maximum size with a fixed length of the string that may be used with the produce checksum called the hash value with the message digest potential long string message. Key hash base message authentication code, message authentication code, use cryptographic key in conjunction with a hash function. Your message authentication code is a cryptographic checksum of the results of the passing data of the message authentication algorithm. Standard with the message of the authentication algorithm has key hash method authentication code result, and then applying with the key hash method authentication code that's called the message authentication code. The secret key is a cryptographic key with uniquely associated with one or more entities with the term the secret with the context, but does not imply with the classification, with the rather terms imply with the need with the protect with the key from disclosure or substitution. Acronyms. Following acronyms, abbreviations used throughout the standard: Federal Information Processing Standard, Federal Information Processing Standard Publication, Key Hash Message Authentication Code, Message Authentication Code, and National Institute Standard Technology. Alright, the key hash method authentication code symbols show the B for block in size and bytes input approved hash function. 8 shows improved hash function. The iPad is an inner pad byte by x36 and repeats the block size times. Key, a secret key shared between the originator and intended receiver. KO, with K subscript O, the key after necessary preprocessing to form the block size byte key. L, block size in byte output approved hash function. The O pad, outer pad of byte of X and 5C repeated by the block times T, the number of bytes in the message authentication code. Text, data over the key hash method authentication code calculated text does not include the padded key length of the text over the n number of bits where 0 is less than greater than n, but n is less than 2 to the b minus 8b. The hexadecimal notation, which each symbol is string with the n represented with the 4 binary bits, and then we have 2 lines as a concatenation, and then a datum exclusive or operation. Crypto keys. The size of the key of the key shall always be greater than the L to the block size of the output divided by 2, which L is the size of the hash function output. Note if the key is greater than L bytes does not significantly increase the function strength of the application. Even the keys longer than the block bytes. So first hash of the keys, so using the H, which is the approved hash function, using resulting of the blank of the block and size in the byte string of the key hash method authentication key. The key after necessary preprocessing of the bytes shall be chosen over the random using approved key generation methods shall be changed periodically. Note that the key should be protected in a manner consistent with the value of the data protected of the text of the authenticated use of the key hash message authentication code. Alright, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to remember all these symbols, so just bear with me. Trunicated output, well-known practice message authentication. Trunicated output used in the length of the message authentication, the length of the string of the output message authentication code and function. L, application string of the trunicated with the output of the key hash method authentication code. Trunicated key message authentication code used in the T and the number of time and bytes of the message of the authentication code shall have left most of the key and message authentication code computation should be used method authentication code. But length T shall not be less than 4 bytes. However, T shall be at least L over 2 bytes. L over 2 is greater than less than T, but greater than less than L. Usually, an application protocol means with a numerous trial impractical. For example, the lower band channel might prevent a number of trials, or 4-byte message authentication code protocol might allow the only small number of invalid message authentication code in terms of pending speed. Alright, so to compute the message authentication over the data text of the hash authentication code function following the operation perform, message authentication code text equals key message authentication code K text equals HK OPAD HK OPAD text. Illustrate steps by the key message authentication code algorithm depicted in the figure. We have step 1, and these are steps the 1 through 10, or step-by-step description of the key message authentication code, which tells you how to do an algebraic form. Then it breaks it down into a figure illustration, has the determination of K, and step 4, 2, 3, 4 through 10. Implementation note: the I see HM, I say hazmat, but it actually stands for keyed hash Key hash method authentication algorithm specify the arbitrary approved cryptographic hash function H. Mandatory minor modifications of the key hash mash authentication code implementation can easily replace one hash function another hash function. Conceptually, an immediate result of the compression function of the B byte blocks can be pre-computed once at the time of the generation of the key before it first give the intermediate result that can be stored with the analyze the H of each time on the message of it needs to be authenticated with the same key for each of the authenticated message of the key. This method save the application of the hash function H of the 2-byte blocks. And it says in key iPad, in-pad, out-pad saving may be significant authentication short stream of data. Stored intermediate values treated with protected the same manner as a secret key. Choosing implement key hash method authentication code manner with no effect interoperability. Objective identifiers for the key hash method authentication posted csrc.nist.gov csor along with the procedures adding the object identifiers. Then it shows appendix key hash method authentication examples, and it shows the logarithms. And this goes on for several pages. Then we get to Appendix B, the limitation of the message authentication code algorithms. Successful verification method authentication code does not completely guarantee that accompanying the message of the authentic there is a chance the source of the no acknowledge of the key present with the posting of the method authentication code on a plain text message. This will pass verification proceed with the example of the arbitrary of the purported message authentication code and the T bits of the arbitrary of the plain text message successfully verified with explicitly probable with 1/2 T limitation here in the message authentication algorithm. Limitation magnified application permitted with the given and non-authentic message with repeatedly presented on the verification different with the message authentication code. Individual trial succeeds only with a small probability of 1/2 T. However, the repeated trial with the probability increased eventually with the message authentication code successfully verified similar with the application permit with the been proposed message authentication code to present with a different with a non-authenticated message of the probability increased eventually over the message authentication code successfully verified and went over the message is. Therefore, journal of the message authentication code communicated with a T should be chosen with a large practical with at least half of the meaning of the bits outbook of the block size L. Minimum value of the T relaxed to 32 bits of the application on the two type of the repeated trial with the describe of the previous paragraph significant efficient of the restricted example of the application protocol. Control application may monitor all of the plain text message with the message authentication code representing the verification permanently with a rejected on the plain text message authentication code included too many unsuccessful trial with another example the curve of the bandwidth of the communication channel is low or no for the precluded too many trial with either type of the both case of the maximum number allowed of the unsuccessful trials may be determined based on the risk base associated with the sensitive data linked to the T and the message authentication code algorithm used. Appendix C show the American Banker Association Key Hash Method Authentication Code NSI X97-1 National Institute Standard Security Requirements for Cryptographic Modules Key Hash Method Authentication Code Internet Engineering Task Force Request for Comments National Institute Standard of the Technology Secure Hash Standards and Federal Information Processing Standard 181-17 April 1995. And that completes the book of Federal Information Processing Standards, the Key Hash Method Authentication Code.